Hello, everybody, and welcome to Greet the Week. I'm Jan Moray, and I'm here with my co-host, Mona Duncan, and we also have a couple of guests that are on right now. I'd like to welcome everybody. And today's topic is practice makes permanent. Mona always has such a great way with words to put things together that make them very intriguing. So, Mona, what are you thinking about with practice makes permanent?
Yeah, okay. Well, we talk about, practice makes perfect, and it can if we're practicing correctly and if we're consciously evaluating as to whether or not it's improving or not improving. But when we reduce the word practice down to its most basic, what it really means is repetition. It's things that we do over and over and over again. And with Dr. Glasser's chart of how the brain works, how that one time, whenever something is not going the way we think it should, and we have this inspiration to make a change, just that one time is enough to lead us on that path. And sometimes it turns out to be effective, and sometimes it turns out to be ineffective. But a practice is something that we do when we don't know what else to do. We just kind of go back into that comfort zone of doing what I did before, because at one time in my life, it did work. Mm-hmm. And so that one time is enough to set us up to think it'll work again and again and again until it doesn't.
And sometimes even when it's not working, we keep doing it again and again and again, hoping that it'll start working again, right?
Right. And so as we practice it, it links us back to the original time that it did give us what we thought we wanted, or it gave us at least that satisfaction of whatever, And so we go back into those things, and it's just becoming more and more permanent. There's so much advertising on TV and for meds, and there's one for Ozempic, and I don't know just exactly what it is for, but anyway, the person said, "Oh, Ozempic," and it's just the start. Oh, whoa, that's going to heal me. Oh, that's going to, enliven me. That's going to do this, going to do that, and sometimes meds are good for us. But what I'm saying is that sometimes when we get that idea, it's like, oh, that's it. And we'll keep on trying it until it is worn out, but is not so effective. Mm-hmm. So 3 thoughts, and then 3 thoughts, and then 6 thoughts. One is that for conscious awareness, not the remote, not the rote, not remote, but the rote. How sometimes you just pick up the TV remote and you go with whatever you're used to doing. Well, we don't want to do it by rote. We want to do it by taking action, by consciously thinking about it. That get away from that unconscious eating. Get away from that unconscious judging. Get away from that unconscious going to the negative. To be awake to what is right here, right now, what is, because it is what it is, and to get to what is, and then see what are the possibilities that can come from that. And then always it is in receiving information. Now, in receiving that information, we the people in the United States don't seem to be real good at receiving information. What about when someone gives you a compliment? Can you take it? If not, that's a pretty good indication that maybe I'm not receiving what others are offering, or what they are seeing, or what their insights or input is. But receiving information, and then living and learning. Because I personally do not want answers. I want odds. I want probability. I want possibilities. I want a different way to look at something. I don't want an answer, because I think that we can go for that. This is the answer, that it may be a small step to it, may even be a large step to it. But because it is not the answer, if we assume that it is, we're not open to other possibilities of adding to or taking away from. And so it's just kind of being in that constant mode of practice of it. Well, let's just see. Let's just see. Not digging it up tomorrow to see if the sprouts are growing on that seed. But still that conscious awareness of looking and seeing. So in looking at how to, so here's where my 6 points come in. And that is, and Jan, you have comments thus far?
Well, I was struck by when you said you don't want to have the one answer, and it's like you think that it's true, and it kind of closes your mind, or you don't think of it that way, or you think of it that I kind of like the probability thing, but I have a math background, so of course I like the probability thing. But it's kind of nice to think about that there isn't necessarily an absolute, and there might be a little crack or a little opening in there that you can get into. Oh, have you tried to look at it this way? Or maybe if you look at it from a little different angle, maybe you can open that up, and it's not so absolute. So
and I say this with as much candor as I know how, but I mean, the fact of the matter is there is one sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be one truth, because it is what it is. And if it's truth, then it is truth. But there are shades to it leading up to as well as leading away from.
Yeah.
And things can
take into consideration that can affect some. I mean, I think about health, and that's been on my mind a lot lately. Not that I'm in poor health, but I'm trying to stay in good health, and my numbers just aren't coming down to where they need to be. And I'm like, well, there's so many factors in our lives: what we eat, how active we are, what our stress level is, all the other things that are going on. So when you talk about in generalities about health issues, you're talking about the average person, but there's this bell curve of people way on the tails that are very different, and there's so many aspects about their lives that can affect it and can change it.
Well, it's just like that information is so much different from the chemistry in our individual bodies. That
right.
Everything. But anyway, so the 6 points of kind of a how-to, without saying how to, is that to read and to hear for information, not for answers, not for proof of what I'm thinking is right, or not for an argument against what someone else has said. It's just hear that information, and I say read it or hear it, because more and more, we're listening to news rather than reading a newspaper, or we're listening to books, or we're listening to things as opposed to reading. That whatever, however that's coming in through the eyeballs or through the ears, as we hear it and we take it in, not looking for anything in particular, just to see what is adding to and or taking away from. And I think in particular, and we want to look at those, and part of it is so the second point is to think. And in the thinking, is to think the pros and the cons. There are 3 books in particular, not that I'm not recommending these but to me, in reading them, boy, I mean, it opened my mind in so many directions, both to embrace and to discard. And as I really began to look at those different books, which are just as different as any can be, I began to look at the fact that, you know what? There are shades of sunshine, and there are shades of shade. Anyway, so the 3 books in particular that really helped to expand, again, my pros and cons, is a book by Mario Livio entitled, Is God a Mathematician? And it looks at all of these people, almost, Pythagoras and Galileo and Isaac Newton and Archimedes and Aristotle and Einstein, all, in the ancients as well as the current ones, and how that they've had all of these wonderful ideas, and they figured it out mathematically to a degree without it being 1, 2, 3 equals whatever the answer is. And to looking at a probability that if it's happened in that again and again and again, then it eventually becomes a law, as in the law of gravity. Once it, the law of whatever, it becomes a law. The other book that was just really and it wasn't, is the periodic table. And my granddaughter, who is I know, my granddaughter who is becoming a nurse, someone came up with the periodic table, put it to song, because you can remember things by song so much easier. And anyway, she and her younger brothers and sisters would just sing that song like it was happy birthday. But I found this book by Primo Levi, who is the one that came up with the periodic table. But the thing of it is, he takes every one of those elements and he puts a story to it. He puts a story to it as to what he was learning about life in thanks to that element.
Oh.
And he talked about argon and how argon is an inert gas and none of us would be breathing if it wasn't there, but no one knows it's there. And he equated it to that whole rest of that chapter on argon was about his hodgepodge of born in and married in ancestors and current cousins and so forth, and how all of those gases put together can produce harmony or it can produce destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes on with every one of those boring metals on the periodic table, and he brings it, and he was doing this as a child. And anyway, he won a Nobel Prize from his argon gas thing. And then the other one, again, I got it originally for a grandchild, and I always get 2 of them because I want to read what I'm giving them.
Yeah.
Or I want to read it first to see if I want to pass it on. And that's 3 Cups of Tea by Greg Mortensen. And he is looking at being in other countries and their customs, and how that with 3 cups of tea, you can go from a stranger to a friend to family.
Mm.
And as we can hear and live and learn and read and look at everything simply for the information it is given, not to argue against, not to use it as a proof that I'm right and someone else isn't, but to look at it and how it might fit into my life, my thinking, my whatever, that would help to complete it to a degree. So to always think, those pros and cons. Another thought is to get out of our ego, because we learn, looking through, I don't know who came up with it with the Glasser thing. It wasn't Dr. Glasser himself, but I learned it through a Glasser presentation of looking at the different worlds. The real world, which really is, and then our quality world, which is, comes from what we know, what we don't know, or what we want, what we don't want. And we begin to, and that quality world really is our ego. It's all the things that we have. This is what I want, this is what I don't want. I begin to, collect it and collect it and collect it and try to bring it into being. So if we can get out of our ego to realize that, Wayne Dyer, the motivational speaker, he referred to ego as edging God out. And if you don't want to, it's that soul information. It's something that's higher that we are born with, thanks to all of this wisdom from this hodgepodge of DNA that we got from all of our ancestors. That's hovering in our genes that we know so much that we don't even know that we know. And when we can get out of the fact that this works for me, and that's, I know that, but it's a knowing that sometimes is not always smooth. And then also in looking at all these things, to let something break your heart.
To let something break your heart?
Let something break your heart. Not in anger, but in compassion. Because a broken heart can encompass the whole world. And something that has been in my mind that I'm going to do, but I haven't yet, but it's getting right here, right now, that I've got to actually do it. Is to set off a little corner. I've drawn a lot of pictures and kind of put them together that I was seeing. And I want to have just a little place here that whenever I have these ideas, I can get up and just go begin to paint it, or begin to just, diagram it out. Because I can see the world. Here's the actual world. But I want to have it the side by side where you can see both sides of the world, And I would have all kind of things coming from it that would be addictions and sickness and brokenness and, all kinds of things. And then, but surrounding that world, here it is side by side, but surrounding it is the fragments of a broken heart. Because when we allow, and back to that thinking is that the fact, well, that's just a myth, or that's a lie, and it may be a lie, it may be a myth. But, a myth doesn't necessarily mean that it's not true. It just means it's something that maybe we haven't, maybe it's something that's so deep that we're not ready to go there yet. I know sometimes I think, oh, that's crazy. And then, someone follows through on doing what was crazy. And well, I guess I learned my lesson. That maybe it wasn't so crazy. It's just kind of being open to that. And then to realize that we can never become, or that we can never have until we become. That, we can win the lottery, but we can also squander the lottery if we have not learned how to use all of that abundant income in ways that's not just getting this, getting that, getting something else, because we can squander it. And we squander it, and that can be the same thing with new information that is very vital, either a pro or a con. That if we're not vibrationally aligned to the fact of receiving it and seeing what little bitty element in there may be productive. Sometimes people say, well, I'd never become a crook, or I'd never become a murderer. And, we need to be pretty careful about that, because how many people, when we get honest with ourselves, has not had a murderous thought? Well, if that thought came to us, there's something in there that if it was fed, it could grow into being acted out on.
Also part of you that knows that that's wrong.
Exactly.
Act out. I've been thinking quite a bit about that lately, especially with, with all the psychiatric drugs and all these mass murders and suicides and things. It's because every once in a while, I would have like a random thought, oh, what if I were to turn here into this car or something? And it's like, where did this thought come from? And I had this one client who had tried to hang herself. She had started an SSRI, and she saw this rope hanging in the garage and said, I wonder what happens if I put that around my neck. And she did, and she hung herself. But fortunately for her, there was somebody in the house, and they saw her and saved her and got her, and rescued her. And I asked her, I said, had you ever thought about suicide before? She said, no, I never ever had a suicidal thought. And so I just, so those thoughts do happen, and they do occur.
They do.
You never really follow through with it. But I wonder if there's, because there's a part of your brain that's saying, no, you're not, no, that would be stupid. You could kill yourself. You could hurt somebody else if you did that. But what if that part of your brain, that regulator part of your brain, wasn't working anymore?
Well, what if it was part of your heart?
To do something mean?
No, to do something that's not. The part of the brain says, I'm boss, so just get out of this. You can't fix it. Just get out of it. But your heart says you have worth and value, infinite worth and value. And this too shall pass. It's that heart that's going to bring us back to our center when we get off center. It's our heart. It's getting to know the all of us, the everything. The brain is important. Yes, yes, yes. But the brain is what configurates the ego. Whereas it's the heart that sees whether or not that what it is we're wanting or not wanting, whether or not it has value. We are attracted to truth. We are attracted to right. We are attracted to happiness. We are attracted to love like a moth is to a flame. And the thing of it is that truth, whatever truth is, love, whatever love is, like water always seeks the lowest crevice.
Mm-hmm.
It's always seeking that lowest crevice. Fishing. I have a friend fishing, it's called fishing, not catching. Because fishing, if you're a real fisherman, requires persistence. It requires focusing on good practices, honorable practices. And it entails accepting the results, whatever they are. Whether you catch a bunch, whether you get a few nibbles, whether no fish comes around. And to me, that's what truth is. It is what it is. It is what it is. And what is that? And then also it's expanding our awareness through conscious choices. To let myself know that I'm thinking that thought. To let myself, whether it's a positive one or a negative one. Because maybe sometimes, we say, well, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. But when we get to that point, we are in a position to kind of look at things differently. If we will take our blinders off and begin to look at them differently, rather than bringing them in to only look at the things that's going to prove what we're already thinking. And choose life over death. Choose love over hate. Choose getting along over not getting along. And you say, but I'm right. Well, I've been so right I was wrong. Mathematically, the facts could have been proven documentably right. But, well, my attitude certainly wasn't. And now the question that I ask clients again and again and again, which would you rather be, right or have relationship? Which would you rather be, right? Now, you can be right. I'm not saying you're not right. I'm saying that sometimes we can just cause more harm than good because we are not practicing for permanence. We're practicing, the TNT, the dynamite. It serves its purpose.
Well, the whole being right thing is, to look at, yes, all the facts may be stacked in your favor, but what is it going to do to your relationship with the other person by continuing to push the point that you're right and they're wrong?
Exactly. Exactly. And looking at the pleasure point, that it is the pain, sometimes trying to understand the pain that could push us into trying to learn it until pleasure can take the place and pull us out. That the fact that seeing a sunrise tomorrow is worth going through whatever I'm going through right now.
And knowing that you will be able to enjoy the sunrise tomorrow.
Right.
Knowing that the pain is not permanent.
Right.
It's
right. It's
going on right now, and you're feeling it right in this moment, but it's not going to last forever. There are things you can do that will help it to get better, to help get through it. but they may not be things you want to do. And so sometimes it's hard to see those things, but to really understand what you need to do to get through that pain so that you can enjoy the sunrise.
Yeah. And be honest with our pain, not only what the pain is doing to me, but how may I be contributing to that, causing my own pain.
Yeah.
I was talking with a lady the other day that it's been like 2 years and she has not had 2 days off in a row. And I said, you know what? I think you're contributing to your own pain because there are some legal things into that you deserve, you are due that time off, that we need some downtime. And we need to love ourselves enough to realize that, you know what? The world will keep turning, whether I'm here or not. And it's not to off yourself. It's not to off anyone else. It's to realize the fact that I matter. I do matter, but others matter too.
Yeah.
That there are different ways of looking at things. And they can all be, and so in looking at something differently, you're just going to see it from a different perspective. And to be open.
Understand that different people have different perspectives. The whole thing, again, talking about something being totally right, absolutely right. Well, it is just coming from one perspective to say that it's totally right. You can find all kinds of examples why it may not apply in a certain situation, and to be aware of that everything isn't just black and white. It's not, and just because you see it that way and you see absolutely no other way doesn't mean that there isn't another way to look at it.
And although what we continually practice, to a degree does make it permanent, it doesn't necessarily make it perfect. If we want some perfection to it, we can change our practices.
Yeah. Well, but what is perfection? There's always room for improvement, even when we think no matter who makes a new world record, there's always going to be somebody later who's going to come and break that world record.
Exactly.
Create a new one. And so, what is perfection? Because there's always room for improvement and making things better. And I think that's, another thing to look at is, okay, practice makes it permanent, but that permanency does change too with the things that come up in our lives. And we need to be open. We need to be flexible and open to those new ideas and new ways of looking at things, new ways of doing things.
And it's looking at nature. Nature is not perfect. It's not asymmetrical, and it is asymmetrical. And it's that asymmetrical that really brings us beauty. And sometimes as we can look, maybe our flaws are, wow, beauty. It can be a strength. Can be a strength. And it's starting to.
It definitely can be, because you think about somebody might be, a very emotional type of person, and that they get really. You say something and they're passionate about it, and they start talking about it, and it's like then they argue with you and things like that. But there is beauty to that, even though somebody might be taken aback by someone's seem like that they're very argumentative and they're always disagreeing with you. But you'd have to appreciate the passion that they have for it, at least that they're really interested in it, because they're taking such a strong stance. And so again, there's a lot of different ways of looking at things. So you do see the beauty and don't just take the negative aspect of it that might be resulting in you feeling a little bit uncomfortable. It's like, well, hey, that's what I'm feeling the discomfort, but that person's really passionate, so she really loves this thing. That's something to appreciate.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And back to the dynamite, the guy that invented dynamite, or was a part of the team that invented dynamite, looking back on life, is also the one that now has the funds for the Nobel Peace Prize. He realized, although there was a very legitimate use for dynamite, it can become way too deadly, way too harmful to the environment, to people, to a lot of things. And so let's practice peace and make it more permanent rather than the destruction.
Yeah. Well, that's a good note to end on. We're out of time right now. So thanks everybody for joining, and thanks for those of you who are watching us on the replay. And we'll be here again next week with another topic.